Throughout the process of making our final film, from the making of our preliminary task, a lot of research into other thriller films has been done, and we've also carried out audience research, which has allowed us to improve. We also use the technologies on Premiere Pro a lot more, which enabled us to improve our skills and find out how to do more on it. In our preliminary task, I don't think everything flows as much as it does in our final film, and I don't think we have as much continuity as we do in our final film. So in The Hunted, I think the camera shots flow better and the transitions fit in better, and everything makes a lot more sense throughout the whole thing. I think through doing our preliminary task and now with our final film, that I found out the importance of everything flowing more and the impact that can have on the audience, because if something doesn't flow, it's actually a lot more noticeable, and without the continuity, that is also a lot more noticeable, and it can confuse the audience and throw them off when watching the opening scene. The music between the two opening scenes were actually quite similar when we look back. However, when we were choosing the music in our final film, I think we thought it through a lot more and found that we were much more precise when choosing the music, as we learnt that music can have a huge impact on the audience and how they feel. Without the right music, the feeling of the thriller could have been completely different. Even though that the two types of music that we have in our preliminary and now are quite similar, I think that we found out a lot more about the music through research, and throughout this process we found that different types of music can work for different thrillers, so not all music in thrillers has to be the same, as they're all trying to tell you different things. Again, the setting of both films were still quite similar. Both were in a rural place that was very isolated and secluded. Although after all of our research into thrillers, we found out the reasons as to why certain films had settings for their thrillers. So basically, when we made our preliminary task, we chose a rural area as we thought that worked well. But when we did research into other thrillers, we found out as to why urban areas were used. And I think without this research, we might not have chosen the right setting, but through the research and the process of making our final film from the preliminary task, we learnt more about the setting, and this helped us develop in our decision. I found that editing changed a lot throughout the process, and we learnt how different types of editing can influence the audience. For example, it is clear that we used different transitions in our final film compared to our preliminary task, and I think that this made the final film more interesting. Also, all of our preliminary task was in black and white, whereas in our final film we had a mixture of colour and black and white to show that the past and present better. I think that through our research we found that it was possible for us to challenge and develop the conventions through editing. So basically, the way we have two different clips merged all into one shows that we have learnt that we didn't need to go along with the conventions, and it was possible to challenge them and do this successfully. I think we also developed on camera shots. I think in our final opening sequence, more camera shots were used, and through the process we learnt the reasons for different camera shots and what other thrillers used to tell the audience through their camera shots. From our preliminary task to now, I think we added more character and interest through our camera shots. Overall, I think it's clear that an improvement has been made from our preliminary task we first made to the current final opening sequence, The Hunted.